Hello. Uh, Today, the House of Representatives is voting to release the Epstein files. A pretty big day. Um, it's always a bit more complicated than that, though. I think it is a good thing to vote to release the Epstein files, and it should happen. But Mike Johnson currently is yapping. I've muted him for now. Lots of lies and spin as the Trump regime has gotten their propaganda message together. They're trying to come up with excuses why it shouldn't pass. That this would be bad for victims, even though victims have come forward and said they want all of this information released. And then they're at the same time they're saying that this is bipartisan and everyone wants to release this, which is not true. There's already good reason to believe Trump administration is censoring Trump's name as much as possible. This is going back to March, like his Department of Justice was doing the same thing. So cringe. Even in this like YouTube chat, this is just from the New York Post, which is not a great news source, but it's one that has a live camera feed of this. I'm seeing a lot of anti-Semitism in the chat, which is weird. That's the future of politics, I guess. Pedophilia is bad. I guess that needs saying these days. Nope. I'm not Israeli. I'm not Jewish. It's just weird to make everything about that like it's some kind of autistic hyperfixation, but like for people who are antisocial. It's just pretty cringe and pathetic. And irrelevant to how anything works. And it's just deeply, frankly, kind of cucked when, we need a society that does things like give us healthcare and education. People need food they can afford. It's the entire point of government. And to see all of that, nope, not a chance. Just a girl. But I mean, all this like weird obsession over like purposely made up culture war shit. It fucking sucks. It's worthless. It's a waste of time. It's a distraction on purpose. And like every culture war issue is literally just reheated these days. Like if you're worried that like culture and movies and stuff are like bad, and cringe and just like rehash and unoriginal, just like shitty remakes, every culture war issue is the same now. You should be really sus of like all of like the trans sports fear mongering and pearl clutching, because that's literally just recycled from like desegregation era propaganda about black people. Same exact thing. This is what happened when they were trying to desegregate baseball teams. No one cares about sports. That's not what it's about. It's about like coming up with an excuse to do any stupid thing. Like if you've fallen for any culture war fear mongering bullshit, it's like you were tricked by rich people who hate you, and they think you're that fucking stupid that they're literally just like reheating their rancid old leftovers in the microwave and just slapping a new label on it. Like even the resurgence of anti-Semitism is so pathetic. Like that is generations old nonsense. Like no one cares. I don't hate whites. I hate you. Because you're like stupid and worthless and you've fallen for propaganda. And it's pathetic, and I don't like weakness. Yeah, it's all a grift. Like, even in the bill that like, reopened the shutdown, John Thune, the leader of the Senate Republicans, put literally like a $500,000 payout for just a specific handful of Republican senators into the bill. Like, it's just looting. Like, John Thune is a huge grifter. Here in the House, everyone is performative because they have 2-year terms and then they're all up for re-election. So they're always trying to score points. It's just pathetic all around. Like, it's not good. Let's see if there's no captions for this. I'm gonna grab my earbuds and then we will check this out. Let's see. There you are. Okay. Sorry, I'm plugging in my earbuds. Oh, that's so sad. You're like a child. Stay away from Republicans, okay? Yeah, I mean, everything is on like a spectrum of grift in that we live in a society where people need money to live. Like, there are always incentives, but you can like look at all those incentives and balance them out. And we're seeing like a generation of like COVID kids who've just eaten lead paint and like played on their iPads their whole lives, and they just reduce everything down to this like honestly trauma fear from COVID, and they just like blame everything on like I want to be rich, and then like anti-Semitism because they just have this like baby understanding of how the world works and they can't comprehend how anything works, that like anything is complicated. People have incentives and like reasons for doing everything. They just started like hating Jewish people because that's what Groyper said on the internet and everyone was just online. And like that is how like sheep like younger generations are. Let's see. So now they are debating on the Epstein bill before they release it. They have time to like debate it and argue about it, and it's all pathetic. Like, it's all propaganda and grifting. They're all just politicizing this. Like, every single Republican is like doing this little dance about this. As a Mexican American, you think Fuentes is a cuck to masculinity? True. Like, and I think it's so funny too. Like, I don't know why. Like, rapers think they're something. Like, they think they're special. I don't know. It's not new. Like, they've been doing that shit for a decade, and they're still virgins. Younger generations are listening to them. Like, these are social failures. Like, pretty obviously. What was it, like the one time Nick Fuentes interacted with a woman in the past year? Like, he got pepper sprayed. Skill issue. I love women. I don't have that problem. Hi, Miss Feminist. Yeah. So I just pull up. This is like from the New York Post, like their stream of it, because they just had a stream. Right now is like the big debate period before the vote, but it's really just like a casual chat with chat time because it's a lot of virtue signaling and like rule breaking politicizing of this issue back and forth. Yeah, like, I mean, I know about memetics, I know about design, right? And it's like the psychology of it. And so, like, they always use memes and humor as a way to, like, lubricate ideas and then, like, shove them into you. And it's, I don't know, humor's disarming. Something to learn from that. Thank you, to be. Thoughts on the courts blocking Texas's gerrymander maps? Yes, let's talk about that. Really, really funny news, by the way. A federal court has blocked Texas from using their new congressional gerrymander in the 2026 midterms. So the whole like weird, completely unwarranted, it's usually done every decade, is they redistrict just with the census, you know, to like update, make sure our districts match our population. Texas rushed it early because they realized that like this Republican agenda is wildly unpopular. No one actually wants it, so they want to undermine democracy by gerrymandering the fuck out of everything. So they like gerrymandered their map to hell, so no Democrat could win. And they wanted to pick up 5 seats, I think. And that is why California said, hey, you're breaking the rules, like you shouldn't be doing that. But we're going to like cancel that out and do it fairly and do it right, just to lead by example. So Gavin Newsom like called for that publicly. So California had a vote like in these past elections, like Mamdani in New York and the governorships in Virginia and New Jersey. They were like, hey, we want to redistrict our map too to pick up 5 Democrat seats to cancel out Texas. But we're going to actually have like a vote on this and do this right, make sure our people consent to this and approve of this, which was smart, which was great. Meanwhile, now it turns out Texas cannot use its new congressional map. A 3-panel judge has ruled today. So, I mean, these are independent efforts, right? Like what California does and what Texas does, like these are kind of, might be federal law, but these are like state-based decisions. Like the states have different processes for this. If liberals are so smart since they're educated, why don't they spread out and move to redder areas? Because people want to go where there's jobs, where there's like interesting communities. Like red areas are usually like small fading like backwater towns in rural areas that like there's no economic opportunity there. If you are getting an education, if you're pursuing a higher education, you want to be able to pursue like elite job opportunities, like really special high paying jobs that are more competitive and require talent. So it allows you to like go into a bigger city where there's more competition, but then like elbow everyone else and fight them because you've gotten that education. Like why would you get an education at a college and then move to like a really crappy like rotting speck on the map town in like the deep south or whatever? Like people just want jobs. Lots of people move to cities. That's why they're cities. Sometimes like you will have some people move to like a really rural area just so they can like build a big ass house and like have a truck, and they just build those big tacky McMansions in like the middle of nowhere because it's like cheap if you want to get lots of land because no one wants it. But like if you just want to stay at home, that's fine. But if you want to do stuff, I'm not a Republican. Yeah, I mean, if you like everything, that's cool. Like some people just want to stay inside, right? So like I'm just gonna build basically a castle and then just live there. But I don't know if this can be pushed to the Supreme Court. I mean, it was a federal court. It's already pretty high up. It's also probably not worth it because the Supreme Court has to decide which case it's gonna pick, and that takes time. Like I think detective and court shows have really given us a bad idea of how our criminal justice system works. That it's like way faster than it actually is. So because this is for like the 2026 midterms, I don't think, I mean, it can be appealed directly to the U.S. Supreme Court. I don't think there's going to be time to do that. It would look really political and like really bad. I mean, this is probably going to stay. I don't know. 10 days into the month-long period where candidates can sign up for the March primary. Yeah, so they don't want to, they would have to, within the next 20 days or so, have to appeal this and have a new ruling on this. That's, like, not going to happen. It's sort of a cascade of political maneuvering among members of both parties who have been operating under the notion that the Republican map would stick. Democrats, rather than facing retirement or primaries against fellow incumbents, are now freed up to run in their current districts. The bevy of Republican candidates who had signed up to run in districts newly drawn to favor them will now have to hope for an intervention from the Supreme Court or face far less favorable election prospects. Okay. Yes, that's like because everyone was planning on this. So on both sides, and you have to like figure this out and kind of reshuffle how they're planning on doing things. American flag. Yeah. Consider this one downstairs. Yeah, they might try to appeal, but it's like gonna be too little, too late. And also, like with any big project, any big production process, like I work in like design and tech and stuff. I'm like project management, so like I understand like any team project is complicated and you need to plan stuff out in advance. That's why like the tariff policy is very reckless and unpredictable long term, which is made it bad for small businesses, especially in the long term. Like no matter what it is, like you just need to be able to reliably plan in advance. Flip-flopping on what the maps are going to be means like, can I even sign up and like run a race? Like, should I be planning out a campaign for these neighborhoods or not at all? It's a disaster. So I think like for both sides, wanting to fight on this back and forth longer and longer and longer is like a detriment. So this is like kind of a soft power tip where like there's pressure to not mess around with this as much. Republicans have an incentive too. But the other thing is, let's see. How do I put this? Gerrymandering can go both ways. And there's even some pressure against gerrymandering. Because when you gerrymander, you're trying to get a majority in each district. But to do that, like smearing butter across toast, you can like have the majority presence in more areas. But to do so, you have to spread out your own votes. So it's a gamble. Gerrymandering is a gamble. If things stay the same, you will win your gerrymander. But if political factors change and your voters, you assumed like, you've risked all your voters, you spread a bunch of thinner races in your favor. If those voting blocks flip on you, you've now lost everything. And it's risky. And that's why there were even other plans for red states to do this like jump random impromptu, we're going to redistrict and gerrymander our states. Texas did it. California did it like back at them. So it's like, okay, there is a threat. It's not just going to be getting away with this. Like other states are going to try and move this too, which could be this race to the bottom where everything's gerrymandered. Some people who care about traditional systems didn't like that. That was the pressure against it. Then the Epstein files and stuff and like the tariff policy, we're starting to see tanking Republican support for that. So like they are losing that partisan hold. So like going all in on a gerrymander seems more risky because of that. And then like the Epstein files is like a big nuke on that. The 2025 like elections were a big nuke on that of, oh, people are really pissed. So they don't want to like do that as much. So the gerrymandering plans in a lot of these red states, they canceled it. They said, never mind, we're not going to do it. Like they're seeing the risk calculation and it might backfire. It might blow up in their face. Who's voting socialist in? No one's voting socialist in. There are like maybe a few local races in some states that have like a third party that's like, we're a socialist party or whatever. They never win because they never go outside. Like, and their voters don't go outside. Even if they have ideas that like they could, convince people on, they don't typically have the money to do so. They don't make the effort to do so. You keep going. Oh, okay. A motion to suspend the rules and pass. Here we go, they're all voting. Here we go. So now that like their story has changed, and they're like, what they're releasing files, because they realize it looks worse to try and hide it. They're all going to rush for it, and then they're going to administratively slow down and say like, oh, there's Justice Department investigations in the way. We want to make sure we censor victims' names, give them more time to censor Trump's name. Which in March, I believe it was the Department of Justice or maybe the FBI was spending thousands of hours just having people like censor Trump's names from files. So now they're going to try and stall the release and make up an excuse like, oh, it's part of an ongoing investigation. and then like try to censor stuff, right? They've been dragging their feet on this as much as possible, so they have more time to like get rid of, um, stuff. Yeah, I mean, if you have like a socialist running in a local election in your area and you think they're like the right person for the job, like you can vote for them. I don't think anyone who's like, oh, the Democrats are all socialists now, like knows what socialism is. Because I promise you, like, I don't know, it's so funny. I saw one person say that like Democrats are a cult, and I'm like, do you have any idea how much that would be an upgrade for Democrats who cannot agree on anything? Voting is strangers telling other strangers how to live their lives. Not how to live your life, but like, you know, the opportunities you can have to live your life, I guess. Maybe that's kind of like that. I don't know. Will there be whistleblowers? I mean, there's already whistleblowers. Here, hang on. I'm gonna look something up, and then I will pull this back in. I'm trying to pull up. There's someone who, like, under oath testified that Donald Trump abused minors. Let's see. This was back in 2016. And then, like, before the election was swiftly dropped in a way that's, like, very suspicious. Here we go. Yeah, so this is back in 2016. A woman was suing Trump over alleged teen rape and then dropped the suit very suddenly. When she was 13. When she was 13. She alleged that during those parties, the real estate mogul, Trump, tied her to a bed and raped her. Epstein also raped her. And then she very suddenly dropped it and refused requests to comment. And then didn't say anything else, ever. The two men held her as a sex slave and repeatedly forced her to engage in sexual acts against her will. This is what was alleged, and it was just like very, very suddenly dropped. A very funny thing from the emails, it is very clear to me that Jeffrey Epstein was the closest thing Donald Trump had to a best friend. But Donald Trump was not Jeffrey Epstein's best friend, you know? Like, they were making fun of him behind his back. Like, Trump has never really had a friend. Let's see. Oh, one Republican is against it. But yeah, the dam is broken, and now the party is going to start flipping on Trump, like pretty quickly. Random Nazi in chat. It's weird that you think you can be better than anyone while being a pedophile. It's like I'm just a values thing. Like I don't think you have moral values. This is the vote to release the Epstein files. Yeah, like there's no social pressure, right? Because it's a prisoner's dilemma, and I predict this would happen as soon as oh yeah, the one nay retracted the nay. I mean, it's looking like pretty unanimous to release the Epstein files because, like, here's the thing: as soon as you realize this is going to win, like, and it had the votes to win anyway, no one wants to be seen on the wrong side of this because it's sus. It's sus. Will it get censored? I mean, in March, there were already reports of, like, censoring, going through all of this. Like, this was always a possibility they were aware of, because they ran on this, which is stupid. Is the envy going down? Maybe not voted yet. I'm not sure if it's necessarily... Yeah, because if they decide, like, I'm going to abstain, they'll be present. Like, hey, like, are you, for this or against this? They say, well, I'm here. That means they're present. But not voted is, like, not voted yet, I believe. Yeah, because the not voted number is going down. It's just, like, in line. It's going through slowly. Thank you. I sell this hat on my website. Thank you, Live History. So, yeah, it's like a prisoner's dilemma thing. As soon as he was going to pass, like, you have to vote for it, too. What is the reason they would vote not to release? I mean, if the Republican Party could have been kept on board to not release it, they would not have released it. People would have freaked out, but they could have held strong and then, like, denied the existence of a story. And then even if people complain about that, they could, like, be like, well, I guess we'll never know, and hit it. But a few Republicans, whether it's, like, political angling for themselves, what are you better at running the country? Have you, like, bought groceries? It's like, I mean, like, the tariffs and shit are just, like, objectively stupid economic policy. It's just stupid. Democrat voted no. Here's the other interesting thing, right? In the same way, like, people want to, let's look up the Democrat who voted no. That is fascinating. Is it Fetterman? No, not Fetterman. He's a senator. Probably someone like that. Like, the other way you can make a name for yourself, because this is what Marjorie Taylor Greene did, right? When Marjorie Taylor Greene first came in to, Congress, she started being, like, the most outrageous, Fetterman, sorry, it was Fetterman in the YouTube chat. Marjorie Taylor Greene came out swinging with the most outrageous, far-right conspiracy theories that are just completely made up, but, like, original. She wanted to be, like, special with it. So, like, the Jewish space lasers thing, like, that was wacky enough to make news. But that's the game she's playing, because that's the game Donald Trump was playing. Started saying weird stuff that, like, you stand out of the crowd, and you gain a reputation for that. So now, because it's guaranteed to pass anyway, you could have, like, especially one Democrat, probably in a red state, who's planning on flipping parties, who wants to be, like, counterculture, will now get specific news coverage if they vote for that. So I'm going to need to try to saying nay is gone. We'll see if that updates. Maybe they're from something else. It could also, of course, be, like, an accident, or, like, they realize, like, it's not going to work. I don't know. They could flip. There's going to be some electoral pressure in a red state to be like, no, I'm backing President Trump. But we'll see how that changes. Is it going to pass? It's going to pass. This is to release the files. No Republican has voted no. They realized that there's just mathematically no votes weren't going to win, so there's no point anymore. Now, if you no vote, you politically crucify yourself in the midterms next year. And this is the House of Representatives. They're all up for re-election next year. Okay, then they took it back. It could have been an accidental button press. Or maybe they're like, I'm going to vote nay for a minute, and then get, people will be like, oh, who is it? It's accidental. Yeah. No, the files do exist. It's not like this one, master, like a Santa Christmas list of, like, names. It's just, it's all of the communications and documentations they could find related to this guy. They're voting to release the Epstein files. The whole system collapsed on itself. It's not going to. So here's the thing electorally. Among younger generations, this is weird, but trust me on this. There are two issues that are crucial for the midterms, and maybe into 2028, things could change by then, that a lot of voters, especially any informed voters, anyone who's looking at the news, or any younger people care about. Where, like, the trust deficit in our government is at an all-time high. The belief, the perception that the government can help, can do things, can make life different and better is destroyed. That's why a lot of people resign themselves. Like, they don't even consider the American dream possible. I will turn on my mic volume. They don't even consider the American dream possible. However, they think at the very least I can use the government to troll enemies. I did used to make videos on tabletop RPGs. But that business model is collapsing because printing costs are skyrocketing. I will go back to it, though. I'm just reworking it. Oh, we got another Republican. Someone said Lindsey Graham. It's hard to tell. I get me distracted. Like, I've clipped it out of most of the stream view, at least on mobile and TikTok. But on desktop, you can kind of see it. I have, like, the New York Post stream up, and they have, like, their live feed in their YouTube, which is big, and it's interesting. And it's just chaos. People just keep guessing names, and it's distracting me. Prince Andrew voted nay. Like, no one knows or cares who any of these people are. This is the vote to release the Epstein files. And because the dam is broken and enough votes are reached anyway, they're all going for it. So this is just the House of Representatives. Then it will need to go to the Senate, and then it will need a presidential approval, right? Is how a bill becomes law. The countdown has stopped. It might be like they're still in line, like they're still going through, but, they've all locked in. It's still being processed. Trump didn't push for this vote. Like, the vote was already happening and already guaranteed. Like, the representatives literally signed a petition. They need enough votes to get over the veto. And that'll be the real fascinating test. Is do they realize it's over, it's time, and then vote for it? This could mean something like back to a deal among Republicans where, like, they're going to agree to release it and then release a censored or delayed version. But, yeah, the Senate will vote sometime after this. They haven't scheduled a vote yet. It's also possible... there's many ways for the Republicans to drag this out and delay this, right? One, they could delay the vote. We're scheduling the vote, we'll get to it. And just push that envelope. I can't give you a time or, like, a number of days. They will purposely push that envelope, probably based on this. They were waiting to see how many Republicans are really going to give into this or how much they need, like, more time to spend. So, like, the House votes, then the Senate votes, so there's a delay opportunity in how long until they vote. Then there's how they vote. The Senate could just eat it and be the bad guys and shut that down because the Senate doesn't have to run every 2 years. So if enough senators, like, aren't up for re-election for a while, they could hope people forget, and they could do something wildly unpopular and just vote to stop this. because they, you know, they could if they were like loyal, and they would get rewarded by that by the Trump regime, for the loyalty. So that's a possibility. But some of them are up for re-election, in 2026. So I'm not sure how much to push that line. Like the 2025 election, I think scared a lot of people on the Republican side, and they're like, "Oh, people really hate this. They want to distance themselves more. They want to look against it." So I think Republicans may, even in the Senate, might come on board. They realize they might not have the numbers, but Republicans have another chance to have a secure lock on the numbers to stop this on that side. So we will see how that goes. So there's the delaying their votes in the Senate, then there's winning the Senate vote. Then there's, okay, now we're actually going to release the files. They could delay that by like at least a year to get through the midterms. And just, you know, any number of bureaucratic excuses. Oh, it just takes us more time to get the files together. Oh, we want to make sure we do this right and safely. Oh, there's an ongoing investigation. Hang on, we need to wait for the investigation. There's a lot of ways to spin this and pad this and drag this out. They really want to minimize, like, this is a damage control strategy for Republicans, and it's also a prisoner's dilemma. How much do you want to save your party as a whole? How much do you want to be the good one? And that's why you get like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene's whole play right now, yeah, it needs to be a simple majority. Marjorie Taylor Greene's whole play right now is to like flip and be like one of the good ones and standout ones, because she realizes the writing on the wall. She realizes Trump is old and sick and unpopular. And so she's got a head start on like trying to break out and be a breakout voice. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying to build a new bipartisan post-Trump coalition as like a new Republican brand. Yeah, like they're gonna, yeah, redact Republicans. Yeah, like that's pretty clearly the intent. I don't know who voted nay yet, and I'm super excited to see. This is the vote for the files to be released. Sorry, people keep coming up and asking the same questions. That's okay. Like, we're here to just kind of hang out. Yeah, lots of names in the files are just like mutuals, communications, you know? Like, it's so complicated. I don't know if Marjorie Taylor Greene could work. Maybe among younger voters it could work. Like, anti-Semitism is very hot right now among like young online people for some reason, because like leftists kind of backslid into like reasonable, you know, I care about Palestinian lives, to I hate Israel, to now just like it's getting like your anti-Semitism, because like they're interacting with gripers in comment sections without knowing it, and it's getting this like bipartisan effort to I don't know. So, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to try and get on the populist train, and we're going to see a new bipartisan populist split among Republicans. Like, there's going to be different angles, and the one side is going to be a bipartisan, hopefully recruit from leftists. It's going to be gripers. It's going to be Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, like those types are going to lead like a populist, this is like the soul of MAGA kind of thing, make it a cult of ideology. Then you're going to have the institutional Republican Party, which will be the Heritage Foundation, which is trying now to play both sides. They're going to be very pro-Israel. They're going to have lots of money. You're going to have lots of tech billionaires because they like people being super religious, even though they're not.
The yeas are 427, the nays are 1. 2/3 being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Who's the one? Who's the one? Excellent. Fascinating. It's so bizarre that like some, I don't know, maybe they're bots. Some people think this is a partisan thing and they're like trying to own the Democrats, whatever. It's like normal people just don't like pedophiles and corruption. Sorry, normal people don't. Apparently it's Clay Higgins from Louisiana. Well, Louisiana, you sent your best. Okay, I don't care about that. All right, we're gonna keep talking about this. Yes, the anti-Semitism thing on the left, because Groypers, who built the first alt-right 10 years ago, kept going, and they've built a resentment of Trump because they feel he did not go far enough. As ridiculous as Trump is, as evil as Trump is, like there's lots of speculation and pearl-clutching about everything Trump does. Trump is actually very socially moderate on a lot of stuff. Trump personally said to all of his big money backers, "No, I'm not going to have a national abortion ban." Trump is pro-LGBT rights, relatively speaking. They push him into some anti-trans stuff, but Trump is like was historically a New York liberal. He doesn't really care. He doesn't care. He's rich. He doesn't care what people do. And he's like in a city culture. It's very multicultural. And he messes around with lots of people. Like, he's not going to be picky. Yeah, like being socially moderate means nothing when but like he doesn't really care. Yeah, but so there's I don't know. I'm bouncing around a lot. But Groypers felt like he betrayed them in that respect because they thought they were going to get just straight up literal Nazism. Now that they see Trump is on his way out, they're seeing this as their time to seize the Republican Party from the ashes and keep going. They don't understand the extent of the base. Like, yes, there are some haters who, like, the only policy they like right now are, like, ICE raids, which is stupid. There are other Republicans, though, who care about the economy, who are pissed right now. So Groypers are making a play for power right now. And you have lots of people who especially are like, they like Trump because he was an outsider to the system. And that's going to be the vibe. Now that he is a system, he's seen as like a phony and a sellout. So you're going to see lots of other people making that play for power. And because they like they're led by this distrust of government and like institutions and power systems. Post-COVID, there's like a lot of trauma related to that. Like I don't know, everyone's scared and messed up. And like low trust, it happens. Like people are just messed up psychologically, antisocial. So like putting trust in other people and systems like make people wary. So like that is kind of finding some hold, and also like Israel's like genocide of Palestinians is truly unacceptable. And that's like a very bipartisan kind of thing. And the way that there is a lag in like people in power seeing like it's not a good idea to support that. And like how kind of canned some of the lines are because like they do get like APAC funding is bad. People have reason to, support that. There are practical reasons, especially if you're like in a position of political power for national and global politics. You would want to keep Israel as an ally. Theoretically, you want to keep any country as an ally, right? Because like that's a place you could get better trade deals. You can like if you need to have a military presence in a region, you can have forward military presence there. Information like espionage, information networks and sharing, which are crucial for like lots of stuff. It's good to have a voice in that region, and Israel has like good systems for that stuff. And it feels like not worth it for a lot of people to try and like give up any like presence in Israel. Like you don't just want to burn an ally for nothing. But they don't realize how much young people have like latched on to Israel-Palestine as their one thing. And Israel-Palestine is seen as like a symbol of like, are these politicians supporting like what people really care about in human rights, or are they supporting like Israel because they pay them? And that's become like a symbol of like this greater distrust post-COVID, and this fear of like people don't care about me, the government doesn't care about me. In the information age, it's better to be evil than to be seen as like a grifter or distrusted or dishonest. This is about like natural gas regulations, something in like Alaska. This is like an environmental thing. Israel is the U.S.'s ally, like pretty closely. I mean, it's weird, and it's yeah. This isn't like natural gas. Like it is just a Congress session now. So for a lot of young people, like support for Israel is seen as a shibboleth of greater values and priorities, and like how much you are open to being like paid to take certain positions in spite of what they see as a pretty clear cut like human rights violation. That's what was a big one, and so that's a big thing too. Like being seen as pro-Israel is it just I mean is really bad for support among younger voters because it's seen as the symbol of the bigger and universal thing. It's reductive. It's not true, but like there are other reasons to support Israel. Ethical, historical, but like that's the reduction thing. It's seen as like a symbol of do you take corporate money or do you support people? The other thing is the Epstein files, right? Do you support like elite conspiring people doing horrible human rights violations, or do you support like protecting people? This like, do you protect us? Can I trust you to protect us, or do you just like, are you corrupt? These are the issues, right? So like these are the two things that are the same thing, really, like psychologically that people are looking for. So like you have it's a bit, but they're becoming bipartisan, especially among younger voters and like in online voters, like news reading voters. Is Epstein files and Israel. These are the same thing. They're symbolic of the same kind of thing. Like, do you trust or not? Like, do you like can you trust them or not? So this populism is becoming a big fault line across political parties. That's becoming more important than political parties. Like this institutional versus populist. I mean, every like there's so here's the thing. We're talking about like PACs and like funding for campaigns. Lots of orgs do it all the time, and I think when people singularly focus on APAC, I question that a little bit. I have some skepticism with that. Like, what are your actual motives? Is this actually about like Israel, like the Israeli government's human rights abuses and their genocide of Palestinians, or is this about just anti-Semitism? Like, it's weird. I don't know if there's any reason to believe Israel is using like blackmail at the Epstein files now. Like that's I mean, since Israel has been founded, it's just been a ally of the U.S. Like there's not. That's unrelated. Like Russia seems to hold some sway over Trump because even when Trump wants to like, Trump has flip flopped a lot on support for Ukraine in a way that's really sus. It seems like he talks with Putin and then like 180s, and he's had meetings with Putin and walked out, and all of like Trump's staff look like miserable and horrified. It seems like Putin has something on Trump, and has for a long time. It's like pretty consistent, but I mean, if you wanted, like, if you were considering like, would it be feasible that Israel is like blackmailing people, like you would see it more specific and person based instead of just a widespread thing. And what APAC does, APAC by the way is not the Israeli government, it's like its own organization. And what any like big interest that wants to like gain power does is they actually fund both campaigns on both sides. So support kind of cancels out. My hat says he's on the list. Like any big corporation, if you actually want to like win and have influence and like lobby the government, you're not actually really picking sides as much as you want to guarantee who, no matter who's in the office, like you don't really care. You want to have some loyalty there. Corruption? Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's corruption. Yeah, free Palestine. Like, the problem is how, and then it's complicated. Oh no, I mean, I'm talking about like the practical implementation. Like I think absolutely Palestinian statehood makes sense and is smart. Yeah, another weird fucking anti-Semite chat. What the fuck? Why is this the thing now? What happened to you people? No, like just the implementation. Like the Middle East is infamously complicated. Lots of facilities like all around. Logistically, how do you create Palestinian statehood in a way that doesn't lead to surrounding states just nuking every Palestinian and Israeli person in the region? Like, it's scary. Oh, yeah, I can hear the stream. They're voting on other stuff now.
The vote on the adoption of House Resolution 879, on which a recorded vote is ordered. The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
They're voting on other stuff.
House Resolution 879. Resolution providing for consideration of the joint resolution, Senate Joint Resolution 80, providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5 United States Code of the rules submitted by the Bureau of Land Management relating to National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska integrated.
Okay, so they're pushing through a bunch of bills right now to deregulate like oil, so they can like just drill in Alaska, like in protected, natural beautiful lands. This is now like the second vote on this, and it's falling along party lines. Which is, it's sad. Like, frankly, also like drilling for oil more is sad. Like, it's a bad idea. Like, everyone knows this, right? It's bipartisan, and I think it's weird when like normal voters end up being against like clean energy or like pro drilling or pro fracking. That is not a normal person opinion to have on the street. Like, that's clearly corporate interests. Like, that does not affect your daily life at all. Also, like, oil is a limited resource. We know that, right? So, like, why would we mess up our earth for a resource we already know we're running out of? And, like, is not, like, a good long-term investment. Just to, what? Make, like, a quick buck now for certain corporations? Not even for you, just for a quick, like, some corporations. Isn't it, like, better to set up green energy networks? That's what China's been doing. Like, massive solar farms. I mean, there are already some places where electricity can be, like, free. Where you can even get money back. Like, you can generate more power than you use. Which is, like, smart. Like, it's sustainable. And it's just, I don't know. If I'm, like, trying to set up an investment portfolio, it's like, oh, do I want something where, like, I get $10 now, and then I have nothing, and I'm still gonna need money? Or, like, something where it's, it's sustainable long term. Like, you get continuous gains, like, infinitely. It's so smart. And the U.S. under Trump has fallen behind on, like, trade, on power, on energy to China. And those are things that aren't, like, flashy, sexy issues. But, like, long-term, generationally, it's such a useless... Like, it's throwing. Like, if you're a gamer, it's throwing. It's like when you stop trying, you give up. You sabotage, you lose some purpose. Hi, Purple Bart. Oh, why didn't Biden release a list? Yes, why didn't Biden release the Epstein files? That is a really good question, okay? Here's the answer. When there are active investigations by the FBI, by the Department of Justice and stuff, like grand jury investigations, you don't want to release any active files, right? Because you need to have a trial. You need to, like, have the jury. You can't, like, bias your jury. In the same way, like, if you're during, like, the O.J. Simpson trial, the jurors were not allowed to, like, watch TV because it became such a political thing, like, become biased. Like, you need to have a fair trial. You need to fairly investigate all that. It's reckless and can bias the trial to, like, go blabbing about stuff too early. Like, you don't want to. You need to actually make sure you get it through. And you want to try and also for victims to, like, pursue their own cases and get their own justice. It is very atypical to release, like, these kinds of files and stuff, but Trump ran on it, and he made it a thing. We're like, all right, maybe we should, sure. And then because Trump ran on that, it became a trust issue thing. And now that they backpedaled on it, it got really, really suspicious. And then Trump's connections to Epstein made it even more really, really suspicious. And everyone's like, what the hell you promised? And it became the symbol, again, of trust. This was this issue of trust. Like, does this government represent me? Yeah, sorry, I got people on TikTok and YouTube here. Agreeing to the resolution, I mean, I'm not sure what this one is about. They've been doing several things about oil. I'm trying to see what this is about. These are other votes now. Yeah, this is another environmental one. They've been stacking environmental ones.
Plan record of decision, providing for consideration of the joint resolution, House Joint Resolution 130, providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5 United States Code of the rules submitted by the Bureau of Land Management relating to Buffalo Field Office record of decision.
But the vote to release the Epstein files did pass. Another thing that I really want to talk about today, and we should look into, is one Republican voted nay to release the Epstein files. I'm gonna have to let that sit a few minutes. People can get a clarification on like who did that. Because we're like, there was one Republican vote who was nay and took off, and one Democrat vote that was nay and then took off, and then one Republican vote that was nay and stayed on. So I'm not sure if it was like people hit the wrong button by accident or like I don't know. But like, so I don't want to see any noise reporting on that, but I want to see who the nay vote was and why. It's probably a Republican trying to like be special or get special treatment. Especially if because of this, we get lots of like Republican Trump administration, like they're going to turn on Republicans who don't support the Trump administration. That one vote is going to be like, look, I'm one of the good ones. I'm the teacher's pet. That's probably someone angling for power. I've heard it was a guy from Louisiana. I turned to my mic. Clay Higgins, yeah. But here is another awful thing. Now they are launching their plans to dismantle the education department. A lot of this is political retribution. They knew this vote was happening today. They knew they're going to lose. They want to change the story. They want to put tension on this. So, this is what they do. They are trying to dismantle the education department when they think everyone is kind of distracted watching the files, and also to maybe take attention off of the files. They're trying to start a new news story, and this is something to keep in mind and like not lose the ball of the Epstein files, which are important. Any cuts to the Department of Education, it will be rebuilt. It will be rebuilt. I am certain of that. Education is too important an area of life. And frankly, I think it's a good opportunity to reimagine and dramatically improve from scratch, more efficiently, more effectively in a modern age, any shortcomings of our education system, which we need. Education should be like a top priority issue. Ideally, I think like our main political issues should be things like education and environment. If things are good, we should all be willing and able to start investing in our future generations. Unfortunately, it's not good. So people are focusing on more like selfish immediate things, like hurting other people or trying to deport other people they think are competing with them for jobs right now, which is just not true. Like, you're probably not competing with other people for these kinds of jobs. I am a Marylander. Maryland is great. But like ideally we should be investing in the fresh air, water, weather, and education of our youth. Like if we could set it up so like our kids had free electricity and fresh air, and like the best schools in the world, that would be awesome. Like they should just get to play on easy mode. So this is saying that they want to cut the Department of Education and then move it into the Labor Department, but there's a conflict of interest there. One, like, that's weird. It's weird. It creates a conflict of interest as well. Where, like, are they then going to be wanting people to get educated? Or is it going to be, like, how can we steer people into, like, basic factory jobs? Like, these are weird things to conflate and, like, view as the goal. Some childcare stuff would be moved to Department of Health and Human Services. It seems just inefficient. Like, it's a waste. Bureaucracy sucks and is slow and is inefficient at times, right? But it's a waste of resources and time and money to, like, have to cut stuff, and then it's obviously necessary, so rebuild it then in other ways. It's also tragically a way to start privatizing more education stuff, which leads to worse outcomes. Unfortunately, this does not mean an end to any student loan anything. Unfortunately. Why do we keep destroying things that will take forever to rebuild again? I don't know. But, like, I mean, younger generations, I repeat lots of themes here. It's this perception of trust and belief that our government does anything. And the way that our government's meant to work is the Congress is supposed to have lots of power. The executive branch is supposed to have some power. And the Supreme Court is just supposed to, like, be the rules layer. And if the Supreme Court rules this is how these laws get interpreted, that's it. That's meant to be the extent of their power. And then Congress is supposed to quickly and immediately want to, you know, make new laws and change the laws. Like, oh, the rules just get interpreted this way? That's okay, we can just change the rules. And that puts a very democratic power base on the biggest, most electoral end of our government. And then, you know, the Supreme Court, which is more appointed, is the least powerful. But we've seen, like, a flip on that, right? Because of things like gerrymandering, because of things like in the information age especially, the fear to act and be controversial, because of things like lobbying, because of things like even the party system all trying to win and end up optimizing, and then they end up kind of canceling out. Like, everything ends up in this, like, near stalemate because of the filibuster. Especially now that you don't need to stand up and talk to the filibuster. It's everything in Congress got so locked up, and it's so slow and it doesn't really work. That's where you get appeals, like in any system historically. This goes back to ancient Greece. Like, that's where you get a desire for tyranny in, like, the technical sense. I don't mean, like, bad thing. The concept of tyranny is, like, you have one person just rise up and, like, by brute force say, hey, I'm gonna, you know, take over and just start doing stuff and get stuff done again. And when you have any system that, like, creaks under the burdens of its own inefficiencies, it gets a little more oligarchical. It gets static. That is where you get appeal and support for someone to just come in and start doing stuff. And so this ruling by executive orders, like fiat, is a problem and should not happen. It's been happening very slowly in a trickle, like, through the 21st century. But Trump is obviously, like, the worst by far. Some people like that. Like, in an idea. But really that's because they think they voted for Trump and now he's doing things. That's the appeal that people want. Really, we should just be voting for Congress, and then Congress does stuff. So, like, this, you know, oh, we're destroying institutions and then rebuilding them. There's at least some satisfaction there, and there's a sense of cause and effect. Yeah, like, we basically just need a more responsive government. That's the problem. And people will rather choose something that's responsive and evil than something that's not responsive but well-intended. Like, the words mean nothing. Oh, I got a bunch of really mad Trump bots in TikTok chat. The final vote on the Epstein files, they're voting on other stuff now. The final vote on the Epstein files was everyone voted to release them except for one Republican. And that one Republican is going to make big news over the next 24 hours. If they're angling for anything, this would be the way. Because now it becomes a PR thing of how do you stand out the most. But they're voting on other stuff now, lots of environmental deregulation. Lindsay Burke, a Heritage Foundation veteran, who is now the department's Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Programs, briefed lawmakers and education leaders on the agency's plans. Of course. The Heritage Foundation is a bane on this country. If you hate AIPAC, that's fine. Please look into the Heritage Foundation. They have way more corrupt money and influence over the government right now. And they have similar goals. They're also weirdly pro-Israel. Like, that's where all this is happening. AIPAC is single issue. The agency had already begun efforts to move its work to federal agencies and slash its workforce ahead of a record-breaking government shutdown. The Trump administration attempted to fire a considerable portion of the agency's remaining employees. Yeah, so they're trying to dismantle the education department, which will be bad. Like, I agree our education system is bad and could be better, but with that, we need it to be better, and we need ways for it to be better. And if we just give up the job, if we just give up those controls, we can't make it better. So, let's see, is there any other news going on right now? Refresh. Okay, what is the vote here? I'm trying to confirm the one vote against it. Yeah. Representative Clay Higgins, a fervent Trump loyalist, voted against it. We're going to see how this plays out. Like, sports-wise. Like, we're seeing this kind of post-Trump realignment of the Republican Party. We're going to see an institutionalist, tech oligarchs and the Heritage Foundation-controlled, pro-Israel, old-school, conservative, evangelical-inspired Republican Party. They are banking on J.D. Vance being the leader right now, maybe with Marco Rubio running as well. Erica Kirk is in that mix. They have, like, weird voices in that side. And then we're seeing this populist side led by Marjorie Taylor Greene, this, like, rebel, anti-Trump punch. So I'm curious if maybe this guy, Clay Higgins, is aiming to be up in a position of greater power in the institutional side, especially going forward. Like, he's going to say that he's, I don't know, Trump's biggest supporter or something. But this is just a personal power play. So yeah, we need to improve our education system, and I don't think that defunding it is going to do anything. It's going to let, like, weird, creepy private companies without educational standards. Ugh. Okay, Mike Johnson called on the Senate to add more privacy protections for victims and whistleblowers that would require the bill to come back to the House for final approval. And there's a broad desire in the GOP to pass the bill and move on to other legislative business. They've realized now that the Epstein files are kind of a poison pill. So they need to just, like, move on as fast as possible. They have to just rip that Band-Aid off and move through. I think that's why Trump flipped, too. Like, they're hoping they could just rip the Band-Aid off and then push through, and then find other excuses to delay and censor what they actually end up releasing. Ugh. We've already gotten a lot of information about the Epstein stuff from Epstein's estate. Yeah, the birthday book was so creepy. And it is like an alarming sign to me how much people are willing to bend over backwards. Oh, I don't know. So we don't know who Bubba is. Mark Epstein said it wasn't Bill Clinton. Didn't say that Trump didn't blow Bubba. Just said it wasn't Bill Clinton. Now, we can't even necessarily believe that to be true, right? It's possible in a private communication, they would have said something that publicly they'd be like, no, now that there's reason to lie and reason to think that it's public. Might want to try and hide that and cover that up. But also, it is a common nickname in the South for like a younger brother type figure. Yeah, true. In YouTube chat, yeah. Republican efforts are not about serving the country. They're motivated by helping their business, religious, and personal interests. It's true. I think that's most politicians too. But we're seeing, especially in the wake of similarly establishment like Democrats have failed already because of that. And have... Someone reported my TikTok live. I try to pop up when things happen. I'm trying to generally stream from like roughly like 3 to 6 p.m. on weekdays. Yesterday I was very, very sick though. Interesting. So, Schumer is now trying to take a stand against Thune on the Epstein files. Schumer. Oh, Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer should be replaced. He's just out of touch. He doesn't know what game he's playing. At all. Well, the Epstein files have not been released. Okay, what happened is the House of Representatives just voted to release the Epstein files. Now they have to go to the Senate. The Senate is going to need to vote on it too. Republicans already realized they don't have the numbers and they lost, so that's why all but one all voted for it in the House because they realized it was lost anyway. And they want to be on the wrong side of history. So we're hoping that don't be on the wrong side of history is a theme. Now the Senate has to vote on it. The Senate has a majority. They just hold party lines. The Epstein files will not be released. But that's a really bad look, and everyone will go ballistic, including the MAGA base, who specifically voted on the campaign promise that Donald Trump and Republicans would release the Epstein files. So, the Senate might flip. Why do people obsess over left or right and supercharge with the judgment towards the other? Because there's a difference. Because, I mean, politics represents things like, can you afford to go to the doctor? Can you afford rent? Will you die in a war? Like, you know, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's some pretty core things that are important to people in their lives and their well-being. And, like, the point of politics is that, you know, we can pool money and resources and attention together and create rules on the important stuff that's bigger than you alone could do. Like, so it's a big part of politics is you're putting your own safety into people's hands. I have 2 chats right now. I'm on TikTok and YouTube, but I'm responding to a TikTok comment right now. You know, it is reasonable. Like, and something you see in like competitive games as well, like a team-based game. Like I've been playing Marvel Rivals lately. If you're in the same boat with everyone else, and one person is actively like destroying your efforts to win in a way that will lead to you getting killed, not getting to play, and then losing the overall thing, that is a reason to be mad about something. Like, a lot of political polarization is because a lot of people legitimately care about stuff. If you like that. I think that, like, also, that's, like, the more reasonable reason. Like, I think among, like, Democrats, like, the left, you do see a lot of, like, oh my gosh, they're hurting neighbors and, like, stealing people and then throwing them in, like, prison camps. Like, if you follow that, like, over things that are objectively pointless and wrong and baseless. You know, or, like, healthcare is getting objectively more expensive and it doesn't need to, and people get hurt and die when that happens. That is a good reason to be frustrated at something else and other people who support that. On the right, you get lots of this, like, virtue signal culture war BS where it's literally treated like team sports. On the Epstein files, I've literally heard, like cheering, you know, and, like, no, it's just Democrats, like, trying to make it into a partisan thing. It's like sports. That's how it's taken. It's appealing to measurably less informed people. Each issue can be, like, researched, yeah. I mean, there's room for different, like, to support different models, ethically or morally. But you can research, like, actions and consequences. Making healthcare more expensive means more people die. And it means everyone else has, like, less money to spend on fun stuff. No, both parties have not failed us in the same way. Both parties have not failed us in the same way. It's just not true. Like, this both sides are the same thing is just, like, illiterate. It's this, like, new age, like, you know, critical thinking is bad. It's not that deep anti-intellectualism. Both sides are the same if and only if you just, like, don't pay attention to anything. If you don't care to countermeasure or look. What do you mean care about the American people? Because that is, like, a feeling. And I'm curious how you expect a politician to give you that feeling. To instill into you the belief that they care about you. Like, what does that mean? It's a common sentiment. I'm not judging sentiment. I'm just curious. The Democrats just voted unanimously to release the Epstein files. Republicans realized the writing is on the wall, they didn't have the numbers, and they folded. But still, one Republican voted to not release the Epstein files. That's in the House. In the Senate, it's a whole other question again. Yeah, Joel, too, you're just probably, like, a lonely, I would hope, a high schooler, because this is not a very well thought out view. And it seems like you are mainly just huffing, like, probably loser Nazi propaganda based on a deeper feeling of distrust you have in society as a whole that then, like, resonated with you because you don't feel, like, emotionally supported or socially supported right now, which is a common sentiment for younger people post-COVID who don't really know what to do. And so they, like, any media that's appealing to a sense of distrust is, like, going to resonate a lot more. Like, this is the thing that Cambridge Analytica did a decade ago. I don't know how many people remember this. Like, Cambridge Analytica got in a lot of fucking trouble. And this is the thing with, like, Facebook and, like, why Facebook tanked. Is it was an organization that was taking money to, like, with the goal of, like, hey, we're going to help specifically far-right pro-corporate interests win elections. They did it not just in the U.S., but I think it was Pakistan or something like that. And so what they did, like, using Facebook, is they started posting, like, fun personality quiz. And they were collecting data on people's big five traits, which is a thing in psychology. It's ocean. So it's openness, conscientiousness, extroversion. Wait, let me look up. Ocean Big Five traits. Agreeableness and neuroticism. And what they were doing with these traits is they were also like they were tracking people. They were like looking at your data on Facebook, and like it was also going to people who didn't consent to that. And they were trying to like correlate what are people's personality traits with different like what they were engaging with online in the news and stuff. And they realized that high neuroticism and low openness were pressure points they could really dig into. So people who were kind of paranoid and distrustful and antisocial, and that's why they started pushing all this stuff. That's why in 2016 you saw this like political realignment, right? You got the like, oh, what about Hillary's emails? And there's a specific spin is like you can't trust her, and I think it was Pakistan. Don't quote me on that. There's specifically the campaign there was a very different campaign where they pushed like young people. And they're like two different like religious social groups. They're competing. Young people don't vote, and they threw that out one of the communities. Like it's not cool. You can't trust your parents. And like they tailored all these different strategies that led to like hey, the youth really want to be progressive and cool. They should just not vote, and not support these old guys specifically, so they could let that one party lose and let the other group like take over. They used data science to help like win elections. Yeah. And so like you got this kind of like conspiracy brain was very the theme in 2016. It's since changed to more of like a hatred and like a fire and brimstone. It's backfired too. The problem is it's backfiring right now with the Epstein files specifically. It's literally backfired because now that they trained a generation of voters and a movement based on like QAnon and stuff through COVID, as QAnon largely spread through like the COVID kind of years as a what do you call that, a hobby, I guess. It was on Facebook groups. It's like being a part of something, puzzle solving, community, trying to figure stuff out together, like waiting for like new stuff to drop. They built a sense of community there, which is very sad. And like there's the Pizzagate stuff. Like they've been training for a decade now people to look for and respond to signals of like conspiracy and distrust and distrust and distrust. It's just not very bright. Like and so now that the Epstein files thing happened and Trump is not going against it, which is the most obvious thing ever. This is what a real conspiracy looks like. People talk. People are not super brilliant. But like specifically, people who are like neurotic. We don't know how this is going to go. We're going to see lots of excuses. There are two strats, right? Like the main thing is they want to minimize the damage. They want to do damage control. To do damage control for this kind of thing, what you want to do is minimize visibility and reason for doubt and minimize people talking about it. At this point, there's too many eyes on this that you can't just shut up about it, because then people will talk and speculate. And speculation is dangerous. Speculation spirals out super, super hard and fast. So they're hoping now to kind of speed run this very public part of it. The votes are probably going to go very fast. And then when it goes into, now it's up to the Department of Justice to release stuff, then they can bury it and hang on, we're investigating, and there's delays and stuff like that. Like they may still try to do stuff about like the investigation, but now if this is the investigation, it's not going to be Trump very publicly doing this. It's going to be the Department of Justice doing stuff to soak the PR of that and kind of be the bad guy, and because it's more anonymous, it's more of an organization. Similarly, during the shutdown, like Trump refused to be the face of anything. He like withdrew really hard because like a layperson will hold a shutdown accountable to the President of the United States because it's like their government. You know, it's mainly a Congress thing. Is anything else happening? I'm not subscribing to the Washington Post. Something you should really be keeping an eye on is stuff like businesses buying out other businesses and this move towards oligopoly. This is really scary. Like most news outlets right now, like Larry Ellison owns, what is it? CNN, CBS, HBO, TikTok, which is really, really bad. Like CNN was gutted. They put like a Trump partisan hack in charge of a bunch of stuff. So you're getting more propaganda. Like the free press is dying. This is how it happened. This is how it happened in Russia. They just eroded the free press over time because you don't just want to have a big, like, you know, a big dramatic you outlaw the free press. Like press is so important. If you care about free speech, which you should care about free speech, you should care about the free press. I mean, I don't like any of these news sources, but you should have the chance to kind of diversify and look around a little bit. Let's learn about the national debt. So you're gonna let me keep reading? No, it's not. Boo. Russia is desperately hiking their taxes because they thought they could just steal Ukraine in a weekend. And in fact, Ukrainians give a shit and don't want to be invaded. Wow. I'm not subscribed to the New York Times. It's not going to like me reading this. No, I think we're good. Cool. Can Venezuela count on any allies to help if the U.S. attacks? I like reading news with chat. We don't stay informed enough. And it's helpful. I've been calling this for a while, and I'm really worried if this happens, that as a last-ditch effort to get some positive economic momentum, to silence increasingly personal criticism, and to just distract the news and the people of the United States, Donald Trump would call on a pointless war with Venezuela. He's waiting a little bit so like people kind of forget culturally the promise of being like the president of no wars or whatever, you know, that was like a campaign branding promise thing that people like, because I think we should generally focus on supporting Americans, like healthcare and cost of living first. I think that is an important good value. But he's picking fights, and like politically, if he just wants to gain some attention, that's the way to do that. Also, wars are kind of good for economies, as much as that sucks. Like, wars need soldiers, and wars need administrative roles, and wars need manufacturing. So it's one way to get that, at least. Not sure if this is always true, but wars are also actually good for gender equality. You know, like the whole like "we can do it" poster, like the woman flexing. Rosie the Riveter. That's because and I wish people saw this coming, because this is, I could kind of tell that a Trump presidency was coming. When things are good, people get conservative. When things are bad and we actually need to seriously solve problems, everyone knows on some level you need actual progressive change to fix and improve things. When World War II happened, very practically speaking, honestly, a lot of people saw that gender roles were a luxury and not a need. Like, gender roles were a boutique pet thing to have and not actually realistic or important. And because lots of young men were sent off to war to die, because that was a weird gender sexist thing, I think everyone should be in the draft, and then we should have, like, frankly, no draft. But, you know, you should not try to gender segregate the military. But like, a bunch of men went off to war, a bunch of young, able-bodied men, which freed up a ton of jobs in the U.S., in like, not only the U.S., but the U.K., like, pretty much anywhere. And so what happened is, like, a bunch of factories and stuff opened their hiring more and more to, like, women, because you can't, you know, beggars can't be choosers. You need people. You need capable people. And the reality is, people are capable people. Adults can do jobs. More help is better. More people are better. And then sadly, when some of the soldiers came back from war, like in the 1950s, you saw another surge of conservatism, and like those rights were stripped away again. Those opportunities were stripped away. Which is just stupid. And like, yeah, like gender roles are needless and restrictive. And they don't get anything done, and they're based on like this weird, especially like post-trauma desire for something to hang on to. And I worry a lot these days when we're seeing lots of young people post-COVID are really messed up by COVID in ways they can't cope with. And lots of young men specifically are then like hyper obsessed, desperately chasing this myth of what they think like the good old times were, what they think would make them like strong men, because they are deeply insecure and hurt and scared and messed up by that, and they don't have any social skills. And so people like are grasping for straws for like stability and structure and what they think that image is. They're not actually basing it on anything, because there isn't anything, right? And it's a cry for help, and they deserve help. But actual informed resources for that kind of help would be things like funding better social emotional learning for like young kids in school, like Mr. Rogers and stuff, that helps you like learn to kind of cope better, like coping skills, so you don't like break under pressure when you get older and you have like serious stresses. It would look like funding after school programs for high schoolers. It would look like expanding healthcare access and including like mental health coverage. It would look like increasing opportunities, and like student debt relief is great. Like, you want people to just have to be lower stakes, lower pressure, people to acclimate and adjust. But when people are kind of thrown into the thick of it with no skills and they're panicked and traumatized, every time in history, like in any culture, people grasp for this like mythical concept of the good old days, which is usually, if you look into it, a mix of lies, grifting, and advertising. It never was, but, and this is the thing that I focus on a lot, because I think it's very important and it's very tragic. That's where people go. And like, as a designer, I can see clear as day. Like, I can see this like slow train crash happening. Psychologically, people are wanting and scared. But, oh well. So, yeah, maybe another war will help, right? I think a lot of young men who feel aimless in life will sign up for a war and run into another war and die in a war, just because it gives them a sense of community and purpose and identity, like, assigned to them, because they don't want that, like, agency right now. But it's pointless. It's pointless, and it's bad. Like, there's no reason for a war. He's picking a fight because it's something to rally around to people who feel desperately aimless. And it's a bad sign that, like, quality of life is so bad that a lot of young men specifically, because they're being more sexist and discriminating against women and non-binary people, are just going to, effectively, it's like death by cop, you know? Like death by war. But whatever. It'll give them some purpose in the meantime. Then they'll be veterans, and then they'll notice the Republican Party absolutely screws them and leaves them for dead. As they do all veterans. Cuban bodyguards, Chinese radars, Iranian gunboats, and Russian missiles. Venezuela's government has spent billions of dollars over the years on weapons and security services from America's adversaries as it deepened its standoff with the United States. Now, Trump's threats to escalate the standoff are putting those alliances to the test. The U.S. has amassed about 15,000 troops and some of its most modern warships in the Caribbean, called President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela illegitimate, and declared the head of a drug trafficking terrorist organization. On Monday, Trump made the most explicit connection yet between the military buildup and Mr. Maduro's tenure, telling reporters he was not in love with Venezuela's leadership. We just have to take care of Venezuela, he added. In recent weeks, Mr. Trump has vacillated between suggesting imminent strikes in Venezuela and engaging Mr. Maduro through diplomacy. Few in Washington or in Caracas, Venezuela's capital, expect the Venezuelan military to withstand a concerted effort by America's military might, if that's what Mr. Trump chooses. None of Mr. Maduro's allies have the ability or political will to increase their support in a way that would fundamentally tip the scales of such a conflict in Venezuela's favor, according to analysts and people close to the Venezuelan government. These alliances have always been driven more by economic profit than by strong ideological affinity, though they have played an important role in propping up Mr. Maduro and his mentor and predecessor, Hugo Chavez, during periods of crisis. Tens of billions of dollars in Chinese loans kept Mr. Chavez and then Mr. Maduro's government afloat after Western lenders largely stopped working with Venezuela. Russian oil traders have played a vital role in keeping Venezuela's main export flowing since Mr. Trump imposed sweeping economic sanctions on the country during his first term. I'm gonna try not to die. I don't understand what compels anyone to try and defend Trump from any of this. From the Epstein stuff, from any of that. It's a weird insecurity. Iranian engineers have helped prevent the complete collapse of Venezuela's oil industry during the country's prolonged economic crisis, and tens of thousands of Cuban doctors and workers provided social services during periods of sustained strikes and mass protests that characterized the early years of Mr. Chavez's rule. But Venezuela's strategic value to its allies has waned, along with a steep drop of its gross domestic product since 2014. Mr. Maduro's empty coffers have made him a risky borrower and a poor buyer of goods and services. Sunk cost fallacy. Did they release the Epstein files? The House voted to release the Epstein files. Then the Senate has to vote to release the Epstein files. Then Trump has to sign the bill to release the Epstein files. He could veto it, but then that veto would need to be overridden by a 2/3 vote, which is harder. We'll see, though. The Senate is going to be harder because they're not all up for re-election. They can afford some negative PR now because people will not remember or care as their top priority years from now. The governments in Havana, Moscow, and Tehran have been weakened or distracted by economic crises or wars at home, reducing the amount of resources they can spare to project power abroad, analysts said. Many of Mr. Maduro's allies are pursuing their own high-stakes diplomacy with Mr. Trump and are unlikely to jeopardize domestic objectives to support an ally facing long odds, the analyst said. This has been particularly apparent in Mr. Maduro's relationship with President Vladimir V. Putin of Russia. The Kremlin responded to growing pressure in Venezuela by ratifying a vague strategic partnership and cooperation treaty last month, but it has refrained from publicly committing any new resources to its main South American partner. Yeah, there are efforts to sanitize the Epstein files. That's sad. Russian analysts said Moscow's decision to largely stand by while its allies in Iran and Syria came under attack this year underscored the limits of its geopolitical reach. An aging Russian cargo plane with a history of trips to countries with a Russian military presence made a stop in Caracas on October 30th, according to flight tracking data. But it is unclear if the plane brought additional military equipment or personnel, if it took part in scheduled maintenance work on Russian-made arsenal, or if it was part of stunts to give the appearance of support at minimal cost. Another Russian military plane made a similar trip to Caracas in 2019, the last time Mr. Maduro faced an immediate threat of losing power, raising similar questions about its cargo. The Kremlin has not commented on either trip. Perhaps they can come in and fix something, fly in some spare parts, said Ruslan Pukov, a Moscow-based expert on the Russian arms trade, referring to Russia's current support for Venezuela. But I think the main message is that Venezuela is on its own. This is going to be the main factor, whether or not Russia tells Trump no. It doesn't seem like they're really going to. Still, Mr. Maduro's alliances have bolstered his ability to remain in power by giving him access to foreign markets and to military technology that could inflict losses, if not defeat, on American troops. While China has refrained from providing new loans to Venezuela, it has kept its market open to Venezuela's oil. China now buys most of that oil, making it by far the largest contributor to Mr. Maduro's coffers. Cuba, which is experiencing an economic collapse, still contributes what is arguably its most valued expertise: counterintelligence. Since the start of the American military buildup in the Caribbean, Mr. Maduro has increased the number of Cuban bodyguards in his security detail and expanded the work of Cuban counterintelligence officers in the Venezuelan armed forces to reduce the risk of a coup, according to a person close to Venezuela's military, who requested anonymity to discuss sensitive topics. The person said that Mr. Maduro and his inner circle view Cuban operatives as experienced and incorruptible. Venezuela's opposition has repeatedly called on Venezuelan officers to abandon Mr. Maduro to ensure their own survival. Some former U.S. officials have said that military buildup amounts to psychological warfare aimed at creating a split inside Venezuelan security forces. Who's ready to die in a war for oil? You are. Current and former Venezuelan officials believe Mr. Maduro's years of experience rooting out dissent make such division unlikely. One of the military options the Trump administration is considering in Venezuela involves sending special forces to try and catch or kill Mr. Maduro, according to multiple U.S. officials. Another more ambitious plan envisions capturing Venezuelan oil fields or critical infrastructure, the officials said. Military analysts and former Venezuelan security officials said Mr. Maduro's Russian weapons increase the likelihood that such operations would suffer casualties. The large Russian weapon systems that are part of Venezuela's armed forces, such as the S-300 air defense systems and the Sukhoi fighter jets, would likely be destroyed by precision strikes ahead of any American attack. Okay, so, there's a lot of these specific weaponry back and forth, but big picture, it seems this is headed towards another war for oil in a country that is unpopular, and because the whole world post-COVID is like going through a big recession wave, which under the Biden administration, the U.S. weathered better than most. But it still sucked for everyone. Like, no one could write that plane right away. It seems like Venezuela's allies don't have a lot of money to give it right now. It seems like just for the sake of getting oil, that could be taken. The other thing, though, as much as Trump says that China is his enemy, all of his decisions are objectively bad at supporting that goal. Like, Trump practically does a lot to help China. It comes to, like, the energy war, like, energy resources and efficiency and building a long-term economic future for energy costs. China has won. Like, the U.S. was in the lead. China's, like, industrialization looked really scary through the 2000s. They petered out, though. We, like, left them behind. And then it's only because Trump keeps throwing, I think more because of incompetence than intent, has, like, let China catch up again and surpass us again and stuff. But, I mean, it's just throwing. It's pathetic. Personally, I think the U.S. should be, like, the leaders of the free world. I like the U.S. being the winning superpower, personally. No. Let's find a source. I'm following this through the day now that, like, the, everything's updating. Also, I want to see if this talks more about the one guy who voted no and why. GOP rep Clay Higgins was the only no vote. What a reputation to get. Sure, that'll go great. Johnson said it was a political exercise. If you think you can bend over backwards and do political stunts to protect pedophiles, you're a bad person. Also, Johnson is saying he hopes the Senate makes changes to it, which means he needs to go around another go. Like, it's another stalling technique. The longer they have to stall, the more Republicans can come up with a media strategy. Not even necessarily like a tactical, political, what are we going to do about this, but more time to craft messages and lines and focus group stuff. The Epstein Files Transparency Act. Yeah. I think this is a really good point that proponents of this bill argue that the record of this vote will last longer than Donald Trump's presidency. This is why a lot of them voted for it, like almost everyone voted for it, is no one's been on the wrong side of history, and this is inevitable. But this is important. Trump could just do it. Trump could just direct the Department of Justice to release it. It is really bad that this has to happen at all. But it's because he has covered it up and hid it. And is counting on Congress to take the heat and slow this down. And if they do have to pass something, pass it with as many restrictions as they can get away with. Okay, what needs to happen next for the release of the Epstein files? It's passed the House. We had the petition, which needed 218 signatures to say we're going to have a vote to release the Epstein files. Now that Alita Calva was finally sworn in, they got 218. The petition was complete. Today, they then had that vote in the House of Representatives to release the Epstein files. And this is important too, why it matters. Even if the Senate passes this bill, and it's signed by President Trump, its language still gives the Justice Department much room for discretion. Pressure is mounting in the Senate to decide whether or not to consider the bill, which Trump has said he would sign into law. He's long pushed for the files to be public, including during his 2024 campaign, but has so far not used his power to release them. But there's language in the bill that would give an excuse to not release what people actually want from this. State of play, the bill will move to the Senate, where Majority Leader John Thune has been non-committal about whether he would hold a vote on it. On Monday, Trump said he would sign the bill if it arrived on his desk. He shifted his position on the House vote when it became clear Republicans were going to pass it. Trump has not led the way on this, right? Everyone giving Donald Trump credit for this is like, it's pathetic. Trump is trying to take credit for something that he knows he's already lost. He could only be on the wrong side of it. Sure, I would. Let the Senate look at it. Let anyone look at it. But don't talk about it too much, Trump said in the Oval Office in response to a question from a reporter. Johnson said at a press conference Tuesday morning that he'd spoken with Thune about making potential changes to the legislation. We don't have an absolute guarantee that this will be fixed in the Senate. I have a high degree of confidence in that. And that's why I'll be voting yesterday. What Epstein files can be released? The Justice Department will have to disclose all unclassified records, communications, and investigative materials related to Epstein and his convicted co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. Materials related to individuals, including government officials, who are named or referenced within Epstein's criminal acts, settlements, and plea agreements. Details about any entities with ties to Epstein trafficking allegations or financial networks. Details and investigative materials surrounding Epstein's death. Internal DOJ communications about Epstein and his associates. What Epstein files can't be released. The House's bill says that the Attorney General may withhold or redact records that include victims' names, medical files, and identifying information. That's good. Child sexual abuse materials. That's good. That's necessary. But it does mean, like, the picture of, you know, any bad person with a child, like, that's not going to come out, even if those materials do exist. And it's good. People shouldn't see those and spread those around. That's the why, like, you want stuff like this to not be released and exposed to everything, but it doesn't mean that this evidence does not exist. There could be smoking gun evidence, like literally a picture or video, that we just will not see. And that's always a possibility. That's always going to be a haunting possibility. Any information that would jeopardize an active federal investigation or prosecution. Images of death, abuse, or injury, and classified information. The DOJ must also send Congress a report that lists all records released and withheld, a summary of redactions made, and the legal basis for doing so. The department must share a list of all government officials and politically exposed persons named or referenced in the release materials per the bill. But the DOJ can't withhold or redact records on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity toward any government official, public figure, or foreign dignitary. This is why it's weird. Trump controls the Justice Department, and he could have just done this already. But he hasn't. And yeah, we're going to see some manipulation here. This is kind of feels like the magic way, right? Just say, oh, this would jeopardize an active federal investigation. I mean, it would have, during the Biden years, like, actively jeopardized the investigation, because, like, Ghislaine Maxwell, like, they were actively investigating her, doing that. And also, that's when the victims were also had times to, you know, pursue their own cases. Like, there were investigations. Now, it's, like, after the fact, like, there was, you know, kind of, like, a timeline on that. It did, I believe in January, went up. Like, okay, now it's good. We can release it now. And then he didn't. Trump didn't. And Trump knew that. Like, that's why, like, Trump will, you know, demand things that can't actually happen. Or shouldn't actually happen. Like, he's just, like, starting shit. But now that it's actually on him to release stuff and he doesn't have that same excuse anymore, now he's panicking. He knows which promises to make. He always knows which promises to make, but he has no intent of making good on them. He knows what people want to hear. That's dangerous. No. The Democrats voted to release the Epstein files. Did you not know the vote? What do you think the vote was? JBolo123 in TikTok chat. You said, meanwhile, Democrats literally voted against releasing them in the House. Well, no, that's not true. Democrats unanimously voted to release the Epstein files. Epstein files bill passes resoundingly in House with only one no vote. The one no vote is Republican Representative Clay Higgins. He was a Trump loyalist. Like, you're just wrong, and whoever told you that, like, you should question them. Republican lawmakers have pushed back against the files release. Johnson, Speaker of the House, long rallied against the legislation, while House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, Republican Louisiana, pushed back in July against Democrats wanting the files released. In the same month, House Republican members blocked a move by Democrats to force the release. So yeah, it's bill's going to the Senate now. But this has been pretty well defended by Republicans. They were trying to stop this a lot. No. No, J-Bolo123. Like, you just, like, look it up. Look it up. I'm curious now to what extent the Republican Party is actually going to realize they need to do something about affordability. They need to do any actual legislation. It's not going to be good, but I'm curious because they have not actually had a healthcare plan. They've whined about everything, and they haven't actually... You want to sound over the article? We can look at the article. We can look into it. So I bet there's probably pretty reasonable stuff that you're just ignoring. Okay, so Trump has floated this half-baked, clearly improv idea about, instead of having the ACA, just give money to individual people where you can just negotiate for your own health insurance prices. The problem is that individual people have no bargaining power. Like, your healthcare will get more expensive because you do not have the bargaining power. Like, when you have insurance through a company, right, you can have, like, deals, like, with certain types of, like, medicines, right, certain, like, hospital systems, certain pharmacies. Like, you can get cheaper care because there's, like, massive, like, contracts and agreements between those massive companies. Like, they could say, oh, we're going to pull out, and then you're not going to get any of this money. If you only have, like, a handful of change, you're like, here, like, you know, can I pay this? Or, like, I don't want to pay that much. They'll tell you to get bent. Like, you can't withhold enough money for them to make them get scared and come bend to you. Like, there's a reason they don't do that. Also, it's far more individual effort. So not only do you have no bargaining power in that to actually get your healthcare more expensive, right? Like, you know, your insurance company has dedicated workers and a lot of financial weight behind them, that will make any individual hospital or like medicine manufacturer to negotiate and come to the table and agree on prices. Yeah, the government doesn't have. The government should have more bargaining power on healthcare, absolutely. But the point of like health insurance companies, is that they have some bargaining power. Yeah, the government does not have bargaining. The government should have more bargaining power, but like you lose the bargaining power of health insurance companies, which makes it worse for you. Like, there's reason as an intermediary, you're supposed to get some effort from that. So if you're like, if you go to the hospital and they're gonna say like that'll be $5 billion, your insurance company could say like, well, fuck you, we're not gonna give you any money then. And the hospital say, wait, come back. Okay, what about like $200? If it's just you and your individual account, and the hospital said that'll be $5 million, please, and like you can't negotiate, right? You can't say, well, I'm not going to give you anything. They'll be like, no, do it. Like, you don't have the bargaining power to do that. With like major health insurance companies, like in all these forces, right? It's a network of relationships and big pools of money, and they can like threaten to like, okay, we'll just kick you out of the network then, is a huge loss, and they would rather something than nothing, and that's where they'll go with it. So you on your own do not have the same bargaining power to lower your healthcare costs. That's number one. Number two, health insurance companies can literally, and they do, have employees, like dedicated employees, qualified employees, specifically to, negotiate with different, like, medical manufacturers, different, like, they talk with all different parties involved, different hospitals, like, who's in the network, who's not in the network, what are all those rates? Like, there are people doing that for you full time, and they can afford to because they're paid a salary to do that. It is just so much time and effort that you do not have. And if, like, you're trying to afford healthcare and you just have to personally negotiate with the hospital, like, or, any, like, a hospital network, like a big organization that has a dedicated person doing that, they can afford to spend more time going through a bureaucratic mess than you. You can't. Like, you just can't. You will give up. You do not have the resources to do that. This is so, like, rudimentary and bad. I mean, also, people have different health. Some people have disabilities, some don't. Some people have more medical needs, some don't. The point of a big pool is we can kind of look out for everybody. If you just have if everyone just has the same individual pot of money, you get screwed if you're not able-bodied. And this thing, like, Donald Trump just doesn't know anything about this. No, you do not have freedom of choice. Because the amount of money you can withhold and say, I'm going to go somewhere else, they'll say, like, that's nothing, I don't care. Fuck you. Like, there you have no bargaining power. That's why even, like, a union works, right? If you have an issue with your boss, you can say, I'll quit. That's nothing. Like, the boss does, like, could just say, okay, bye, I'll just hire someone else. If everyone is like, we will all quit, we'll all pull out, that ruins them. That's why with the health insurance company, it's like, hey, lower the price on this, or we're going to withhold all the money from, like, all 500 patients from your hospital system. That is a massive existential threat, such that it brings them to the table. You alone, your freedom of choice means nothing. You cannot influence the system. You're throwing pebbles at a brick wall. It's really bad. But like Trump does not know healthcare policy. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about this. So he just like made up an idea. Similarly, because he's heard affordability is a problem, and he's focusing on this very like basic, practical, real, you feel it directly. And so what he thinks, because he has like a marketing background, right? He wants you to psychologically feel the impact of that. That's why he's like, oh, people care about affordability. Let's just give them money. Let's give them a $2,000 check, right? That's another news story that went around. It's a bad idea, right? Because look, even the COVID checks, we're still like riding the inflation wave from that. I mean, it's not a good long-term solution. It can be a short-term. Yes, no, there are policy people, but Trump's policy people are all bought and owned by the Heritage Foundation. Their priorities are more on like Christo-fascism. They're like weird old country club guys. They don't care. They don't know about this stuff. And a lot of times, like, he does just riff and make stuff up. Like even this this thing he said about like, oh, we're gonna give everyone a $2,000 check because look at the tariffs. This is something he made up. This was not coming from a policy person. This was not coming from like economics experts. He just like BS'd it. He BS'd it. And like mathematically, giving everyone $2,000 doesn't work. The tariffs do not generate that much income. The tariffs are already like, I mean, he said it's not meant to be an economic program. He said, he only, legally, if it's an economic thing, it's supposed to go through Congress. But I mean, he would have to spend double what the tariffs actually give to do this. It's not that much. The money is more efficient in like government programs. You don't just want to give money to individual people like this. It would cause massive inflation because if everyone suddenly has $2,000, people spend it on stupid stuff that month, and also like your landlords will increase your rent that month. And then the Treasury Secretary immediately got up like on meetings like, hey, like, no, we're not doing that. We're not, like, we don't have a plan for that, right? He tried to defend it. And he said, oh, by giving everyone a $2,000 check, he means tax cuts. If you just give each individual person $2,000, rent's just going to go up by $2,000 that month. Like, it's not... You can afford something bigger or more tactical by pooling money and then putting it to something more efficient. Like a road. Or what it's already supposed to be is like, allegedly, like funding the government that we have. So where's he getting this money? Has he just been wasting it? And then also, if you give everyone tariff checks, and then the courts rule that, like, hey, he's overstepping his abilities of office by, like, having all these tariffs in the first place, like, they're illegal tariffs, that, then all the tariff money has to be, like, refunded, which means they have to give it back, which means now he's given everyone $2,000, which is already spent because people need food and, like, will buy entertainment stuff. And now it's, hey, by the way, American public, you owe $2,000. Either that causes riots in the streets, or they find the money somewhere else, which means they just loot more of the government. Not even loot, they destroy more of the government. So now that Republicans are trying desperately and flailing on affordability, like they're just making stuff up. Like Trump is, oh, well, let's just give everyone $2,000, which is not like it's not any kind of smart long-term decision. It's just not. It doesn't help anything. It doesn't systemically fix anything. It's a short-term flash in the pan that has long-term consequences and causes hyperinflation, which you've already seen, and he wants to just do it again. Because that's what he thinks affordability is. Because he doesn't understand grocery shopping. He doesn't understand rent. He just doesn't. Healthcare also. Let's just give people money to get their own healthcare. That's not how that works. It undermines what poor efficiency the insurance system already has. Yeah, this is not enough to cover anyone's healthcare who actually needs healthcare. And this is why it's inefficient, right? Some people would be getting money they don't need or don't use, and it just sits there. Other people who actually need money don't get it. Like, in an insurance system, it's so that you can, like, actually redistribute the money where it needs to go. To solve people's problems where they have problems, actually solve them, and then, like, you know, not give money to people who don't need it. Just worthless. No story. I saw this. Yes, don't care for the weak. And also, like, it makes everyone better. Like, your society is better if you don't have people who are, like, dying of preventable illnesses, right? If you have more able-bodied, alive people, you can do more as a society. You have more workers. And then, like, your hospitals will not be overflowing. Like, so much stuff is preventable. This is painful to me. This really sucks. Trump meeting with the Saudi crown prince. Saudi Arabia is a shithole country. It's a theocracy. It's a monarchy, which is fucked up. But they have a lot of money, and they're evil. And they killed a journalist who was critical of the regime, which is the most anti-democracy, anti-free speech thing you can do. And I don't understand how any, like, self-described conservative can in any way support this, can in any way support undermining the free press. Because that is how free speech actually works. And they denied that they killed him, but even U.S. intelligence is like, oh, they totally killed a journalist. So, first appearance hasn't, you know, was successfully shamed by the world to not be supported for killing a journalist. And of course Trump folds. These are his friends. Like thugs, criminals who destroy speech at every opportunity. It's just worthless. I jumped on stream like kind of early to talk about the Epstein files when they were voting on that. Luckily that passed. I'm worried about the Senate. But I think we're kind of out of news for right now. Things are weird. The government's kind of jumped the shark, and way less stuff is happening these days. So I might kind of end a bit early. So bye, everybody. I'm gonna go do some chores.